So, good afternoon to everyone joining us today, including our panelists and our listeners online. I'm joined by my co-host Zabir in this series of In Conversations that will follow up to some earlier conversations Zabir and I have been having on what is likely to be an incredible, game-changing journey on responsible, sustainable, and ethical business.
Jazakallah Feroz. Well, yes, as you said, we're hosting this thought leadership series that engages entrepreneurs, investors, and policymakers on the same platform. It's a kind of peer-to-peer setting, I guess, and it's basically to discuss thought-provoking themes for the new wave of entrepreneurs, the new services and products that are shaping the global ethical, responsible, and halal economy.
So the series has been dubbed Reflections and is the world's first online-offline entrepreneurship hub where our panelists will share their insights and expertise.
And Feroz, answer all those questions that those starting out in business, already on the journey, and policymakers are wanting to be answered on the real value of responsible, ethical, and sustainable. And obviously, the thematic discussions often missed out on the startup circuits. So we'll be talking also about impact, the SDGs, access to funding, women economic empowerment, inclusion, wider diversity, and with that, of course, sustainability.
And then all of these conversations culminate in a plenary of intellect, expertise, and talent in December at the London Excel at the Halal Economy Conference, where we are bringing people together to widen the discussion.
Yeah, and this is our 7th webinar in the series, and today's all about entrepreneurship and what's shaping the next decade.
Okay, so let's get started then. We already have a big list of those questions, but our listeners can use the Q&A tabs to ask questions which will come through to myself and Zubair, and we'll put it to our panel. If I can ask you to keep your questions to the point and to which panelist the question is addressed to.
So yeah, today we have champions who've navigated this journey themselves. All their bios are in the hyperlinks that we've already shared. So talking all things entrepreneurship and entrepreneurial, we'll be throwing need-to-know questions to our panel of experts. We'll learn from them how they got started on their responsible journey, what motivates them, and how they're navigating the space in today's environment. And obviously what they believe needs to be done by policymakers and consumers alike to motivate innovations, startups, and create a more enabling environment.
We'll also be asking our panelists to share their insights as global change makers, sharing their journeys, describing how they became empowered to adapt business strategy to key developments in improving lives and building inclusion. We'll also discuss their motivations in engaging with environmental, social, and governance issues in core business. And we'll ask how these trends in climate change and gender equality are informing business decisions, as well as other developments that are affecting the integration of the 2030 agenda into corporate decision-making practices. So, welcome to all of our panelists. We have Sadaf Mahmood, Fahad Qadir, Malik Ahmad Jalal, Yahya Faruqui, Paul Wakefield, Erkut Sögüt, and Ricky Kothari. We both want to personally welcome you to our In Conversation series, and of course for being part of the bigger picture as we reshape the ethical and halal economy narrative.
Great, thanks Feroz. So let's get started. So to all of our panelists, sit back, relax, and as wearing multiple hats today, do cast your mind back to when you started the journey. So I'll kick things off with a very simple one. This is to all of our panelists. We'll go in the following order: Sadaf, Paul, Yahya, Ricky, Ahmad, Erkut, and then Fahad if he's able to join. So just short answers really, a little bit about yourselves and your company. How are your companies or your services creating impact? So Sadaf first.
Okay, yeah, I just realized. Hi, so I started some 7-8 years back. I took a U-turn. I was a journalist before that, and I launched my first social enterprise in partnership with the previous company that I was with. And now that I've, so again, like Zubair knows me and Zubair knows how this year I took a huge leap of faith and left everything and started from scratch again. Starting with, I launched Xiphios Innovations, and that focuses on, of course, it's still in the social impact space, but I narrowed down to 3 verticals. One was financial inclusion for women, especially at the grassroots. The other one was it's working with the overlooked layer of startups. And when I say overlooked, it basically means startups who go from one business challenge to another, don't have a direction, have great ideas, don't know how to access capital. And the other one is in the incubation space for industry-specific incubators. So in a way, when we talk about ecosystem, it's addressing several layers of the ecosystem and not just one key component.
Okay, fantastic. Paul, over to you. Same question.
Yeah, hi guys. So I first started out in business in 2006 as a very traditional consultant and training practice. Within 18 months, that business closed. I had to close it, made 3 people redundant, ended up homeless, bankrupt, absolutely horrendous. I then started again, October the 26th, 2008, launched the business again with £2.87 in my bank. I've now gone on as a coach, a trainer, solopreneur to support and train thousands of people from around the world to help them set up a lifestyle business, which I know it's kind of the buzzword that we hear of late. I travel the UK training ambitious people, and the big thing that I coach and train on are the 3 big mistakes that I made in my first business. And I've kind of made it my mission in life to help ambitious people and startups not to make the same mistakes as I did, because I lost everything. And for me, the big thing that I've always worked on, for me, you know, freedom means everything for me. And I'm talking freedom of health, freedom of wealth, freedom of time, the mind, speech, and family, really, because we all kind of come out of this corporate world very ambitious when it comes to starting our business, but yet a lot of people set it up in a very traditional way. And as I always say, they end up creating a glorified job rather than a business without the glory. Yeah, I'm on a mission to support 500,000 ambitious people by 2027 to live a life of total freedom.
Wow, big target. Yahya, same question for you.
Thank you, Zubair. My background is banking and finance. That's what I studied. That's what I practiced for a long time, almost 15 years. And then I moved into learning and development. So if I look, now after working for over 20 years or so, my core expertise is digital education, digital health. That's what we have been doing, my team and I, for several years, mainly for corporates in many countries. Now you have to run your kitchen as well, So we have been working mainly for the corporates who were quick to adopt the innovative ideas. But we could see so many opportunities, so many impacts, so much you can do if you look around and you do it for the masses and for the poor. So what we did was that after several years, this year we founded, my wife and I, we have founded something called Aser Ventures, Aser meaning impact. And now we are looking at basically solutions for the poor. So we are looking at solutions for the out of school children. We are looking at mental health issues. We are looking at nutrition issues. So this is the impact that we think, I don't see anything wrong in even working with a bank or providing solutions for the corporate sector. We do create an impact there. We provide good services. We create employment. So that's a good thing to do. But obviously a bigger impact is when you go towards the market. So this is what we are trying to do. And to answer, as you said, how we are looking at impacts, one is in our target market, which basically are children and mothers that we are looking right now. Number 2 is that it's not just about what we are doing, it's about how we are doing it. So we basically have built our model based on impact investment. So it's financial returns with social impact, so that we can stand on our own feet, build something which is sustainable, which would build something which is scalable. And then we are also looking at how are we doing all this? How are we conducting our business? How are we dealing with our employees, with our vendors, with our customers? How is our sales and marketing? And importantly, in the digital world, what are our performance standards? So we are trying to build our business based on impact investments and based on halal economy framework. And there is a lot of guidance which is available here. So that's what we are trying to do, and that's how we are trying to measure our impact in all these forms.
Great. Okay, I've got some questions that I'm going to ask you later that relate to that. Same question to Ricky and then to Ahmad.
Yeah, so I used to work in the corporate world, so working for consultancies and traveling a lot. And you can imagine many of you have traveled a lot, and the lifestyle working with clients can be quite impactful on your lifestyle in terms of your health, eating habits and things like that. So I was eating late, drinking fizzy, sugary drinks, and I wanted to kind of change the way my lifestyle was. And this kind of led into the world of entrepreneurship and looking at ideas of making life better and making producing products that actually align to more of the growing trends of on-the-go culture and that type of lifestyle, where that's very much changing, especially in the urban environment where people are looking for something quick, something easy to make on the go and get benefits from it. So, for example, health benefits from the products that they're consuming. So we're a fast-moving consumer goods business. We started off with a range of teas, but in a different format. And it was about trying to bring loose leaf tea experience with the convenience of tea bags, but with loose leaf tea into a different format. But not only to align to that kind of growing trend, but also to give a new experience where an industry has been quite stale for some time, and be quite inspiring with the brand and the ideas behind our products. So that's kind of where we originally started, and I investigated the market and looking at how we can use sustainable products or reuse current products and materials that are already out there. For example, we use recycled aluminium in our current range of tea products. Moving into now coffees that we started producing, and we roast our own coffees, and we use biodegradable materials. And in these pods, a lot of these pods use plastic. So we're trying to adapt our business model and change our value chain to focus on more sustainable approaches. And always at the back of my mind has been fundamentally using our focus on entrepreneurship and business, being inspiring and all the good stuff that comes around that, but trying to incorporate business for good. So, for example, in our packing, where we pack our tea stick products into boxes, we use a local prison, and they help us pack our tea sticks into boxes. It's giving the opportunity of the prisoners to do something and earn some money while being on their rehabilitation process. But it's also allowing us to also get a benefit by getting our box and packaging done at a reasonable rate. So we're always thinking about that as we go through to the next decade and how we change our value chain.
Okay, that's pretty awesome. Learned something new today as well. Ahmad, over to you. Same question.
To the stage of my life where done a few things, and I realized if I was going to become an entrepreneur, now it's going to be the time. I always say I could eat a lot of pot noodles when I was 24, but my ability to eat pot noodles, which I equate to my ability to bootstrap things, has certainly come down. So I better do it quickly. I better go that route before I, get used to the comforts and the luxuries of life. So that's actually what kind of creates the sense of urgency for me. But before that, I was an investment banker. I was a private equity investor. Then I was an operator and lived in England, but also in Dubai and in US. And now I've been working in Pakistan, really in the fields. And the journey I called from London to Korangi. And for those of you who don't know Korangi is not the very nice part of Karachi. It's a rough part of Karachi where we used to operate from. And what I realized was, and what my business is about is actual value creation is done by operations, by building things. And so when I was thinking about whether I should do a fund or an operating entity, and this is still a startup, early stage startup, I thought about, I went the route of an operator in Pakistan, which is very difficult and very risky, a risky move to have. And what drove me towards the sector was the experience with my mother. My mother was a doctor. She went to medical school in Khyber Medical College way back in 1957. She was a doctor in the army for 35 years. And yet about 10 years post her retirement, she fell ill. The same hospital where she ran for 10 years almost. And the doctors, they neglected her. And had it not been my siblings who were doctors, that her life was saved. And I thought to myself that, you know, there is a healthcare appetite in Pakistan, that if something like that can happen to someone like our family who are full of doctors, who have the resources, but also the connections to get the right treatment, if that can happen to us, what would be happening to others? So that's where my startup, which is Cordoba Ventures and Cordoba Care, is all about bringing process-driven quality healthcare to the affordable segment. People who cannot afford the Khans of the world or the Ziauddins or the top hospitals, who can only afford what is in the middle, are suffering in Pakistan, not getting a quality care, a standardized quality care. That, you know, when I was living in London with NHS and other facilities, you would expect and you would demand, but that's not available in Pakistan. That's what Cordoba Care is about.
Okay, thanks, Ahmad. Fahad's just joined. Welcome, Fahad. We're just through our first round of questions, so I will repeat the question for your benefit. I'm going to ask Erkut to answer the question first, and then Fahad, over to you. So how are your companies or your services creating impact? Erkut, I know you're kind of very interesting business, so I'll let you just share what you're doing to create impact. Okay, you might have to just come a bit closer to the mic.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Can you hear me good? Okay, perfect. So my journey, so it started like, actually, I'm a big fan of sharing knowledge, and that was always my key in my life. So sharing whatever I have, whatever it doesn't matter about knowledge, it's my wealth, whatever. I'm someone who shares. That's what I got from my parents. So when they said me, when I was a young kid, my father and my mom said, you have to always share whatever you have with others. And sharing was always the key in my life. And I shared always my knowledge with others who wanted to learn something. So I wanted to become a teacher, but I ended up becoming a lawyer. And then I was a teacher at the university. So my father said, lawyer, doctor. I said, oh, okay, I have no choice. I become a lawyer. That's similar, typical question. And so I said, okay, I can become a lawyer. My father's happy, but I teach at university, so I'm happy too. So I did 3 masters in different countries. I did a doctor in law in Germany. So I specialized myself in sports law and started literally still then sharing my knowledge. And I said, that's the key thing in my life, making others better. And when I was trying to learn something from someone else, I said, okay, I have to give that guy some quality, some extra. I need to make someone better in terms of getting something. That's kind of my mentality when I work with others here in my office as well. So my office is like kind of a university. I have here around 15 to 20 kids from all over the world, from Chile to Australia. I bring them over here, I teach them, and then I put them into my businesses. So I learned very quickly is I need to build first a team. I need to invest in people, then to build a business. So that's the kind of the mentality. Some people create a business and then employ people. I said that doesn't work. I need to find first the right people. I need to educate them myself here in London. And then I send them back to the places where I have business or where I create businesses. So I have a guy in Austria, I have one guy in Amman, one in, he learned from me here, he's now in Istanbul. So literally all over Europe, and they're representing me and my companies in these countries. But they come over here, I teach them, I give them something on the way, I share my knowledge, and they have the same philosophy. So that's kind of how I built up my businesses over the years. And today, in sustainability, we created again, because I'm in football and I'm in sports and I represent football players and athletes from all over the world. I said, how can I do something with these athletes? I have a great tool. I have these athletes. How can I do something with them and make an impact? And then so I put Mathieu Flamini. He's one of the smartest football players I've ever met. He works in the field of sustainability and climate change. I said, okay, then put Mesut Özil in. He has a huge reach, over 80 million on social media. Put these guys two together, create a business called Unity. We started making products here in England, 11 products, grooming products, but made of sugarcane, no plastic. And the ingredients are 100% original. So that's kind of a business, and it works and it's nice, and we're on a journey because we believe in future we will have more refugees because of climate change than of war. So that's kind of we're addressing now and working towards it. And we're meeting people in that. And it makes us, enriches us, and it makes us like really an interesting journey for us. Same, I said, okay, we created a cosmetic company with others together. So what can we do? Okay, halal. Then again, this thing came up. Okay, what can we do? Lipsticks for women, but halal. So we created that, called Citizens Cosmetics. Now we just agreed with 50 stores in the Middle East. We're selling these products over there. Again, a journey. We talk with people, bring people together. The football players invest in it. So I kind of use these kind of football players and their reach to create businesses around them with my sharing of knowledge. That's a kind of
wow, awesome, awesome. Fahad, same question to you, and I know you're coming at it from slightly different angles. So, what is your company doing to create impact?
Hi. So, Zubair, sorry for joining late. I was just proud. For me, impact would be very simple, actually. You know, when we talk about, I think the world and the companies have moved far beyond the word, the terminology of CSR. You know, the impact is at every level. I'll give you a very small example. So we just last week, and we had a TEDx in Lahore, organized on the subject of plastics and recycling. Now we all know it's a hot subject. It's everyone's talking about it, but you know, we thought having a TEDx is good, but how about we just add some more value to it? And you will be pleased to know, I mean, we tried to verify the numbers. This is one of the only few, or maybe the only TEDx event, which is a green event. So we're offsetting all the carbon neutral, people traveling in and everything else by offsetting that. And these are the small kind of things that make an impact. We you know, Coca-Cola does a lot of huge things. You know, we talk about environment, we talk about women, we talk about, you know, education and other things. I think the key here is how do we enable that? You know, money is not the question. How do we value addition? You know, how do we think about that? For me, impact is around creating more value for these people, because I think check writing, we move beyond that. We move beyond just the terminology of sustainability. I think right now the economic value or the value addition for people is much more appreciated, and I think that's what you know, even I believe in very, very thoroughly. How do we work with partners to add that, to enable, to unlock those opportunities for them, in order for them to, you know, thrive financially or in any other way.
Okay, that's interesting, because that leads into some of the other questions we've got. So I'm just going to jumble a couple around. First, I hope you don't mind if I just jump in with the next question. Okay, so for me, I'm seeing all of you doing some great stuff, but there are policymakers out there who really are still trying to navigate this space and try and make a sense of what's motivating people like yourself as entrepreneurs. Just, you know, I'm conscious of time also as well. So maybe just a few short kind of comments here. What can you share with these policymakers for them to better understand people like you? So, you know, you have a different kind of thought process altogether. Ricky, what do you think we can share with policymakers to help them better understand the journey you're going through? And that question's also to Fahad as well.
I think they need to understand, as a small business, having the opportunity to be quite agile as a company, that we have an opportunity to, what we've been focusing over the last few weeks is actually how do we, number one, take these 3 I's. So inspire, how do we inspire the next generation of people? And they need to understand that as a young entrepreneurial startup company, you know, we launched in 2015. We've had a lot of interns come into us, and how do we keep that inspiration going as we grow? The second I is how do we be inclusive? So when we looked at other markets, we predominantly focused on, and it it was the best person for the job, but it happened to be female. And how do we be more inclusive in that and be more diverse? So inclusive is one of our kind of values. And then investing. How do we invest in these people? How do we give them and empower them? So these policymakers need to understand how they can use us as inspiration into the wider public and the wider economy. I don't know the exact answer and how they could benefit us, because a lot of the things we've had to do is been outside of government and actually do our own things and challenge the status quo by being a bit disruptive and learning as we go along. And it's not always been successful, and it's been quite hard. So we have had to take the pain of a lot of things that we've done, like go out and set up an office in China as an example. And we're still on that steep learning curve, which has been still quite challenging, but it's growing.
Yeah, I think one of the key phrases you mentioned there is disruptive, and I'm conscious that that's a phrase that keeps kicking up in the conversations that Feroz and I have been having. Fahad, you come from a different angle because you're obviously you're a large corporation, huge globally in terms of presence, in terms of your reach of products and services. What do you think you can share with policymakers? And I know you deal with them in a slightly different perspective, but I'm sure there are some of the things that Ricky's mentioned that kind of resonate with you also as well, regardless of size. What do you think?
This is perhaps the most challenging area. You know, policymakers and us, I think, are completely different tangent. I think what we can try doing is talk about the facts. We try talking about, you know, the corporations are not responsible for all the evils, frankly. I mean, I'm talking specifically around Pakistan for now, but even when I look globally, I think a lot of blame inadvertently comes towards corporations for the sheer size and scale that we have. Of course, we use resources around natural resources or other things, but I think companies like us are equally responsible as well. So we are responsible in our use. We are cognizant of the fact that we have an impact, and we try to offset that in one way or the other. And I think this is why you see all the global benchmarks and the locals on this as well. It's because we want to make sure that whatever we are using out of nature, out of planet, out of society, we also make sure that we contribute back equally or in a bigger way, which is why you see all the good stuff that's happening around. So I think that's what we want to share with policymakers. Sometimes they tend to not see that. They see a big fat dollar sign on us, and that's all. But we want to make sure that they see us as a partner. You know, I say this line again and again. We are not the problem. We are part of the solution. Corporations are part of the solutions to any particular issue. We can be a big part of the solution.
Great, thanks. Feroz, I know you've got some burning questions to ask.
I am. I was just trying to find that mute button. Guys, fascinating first 20 minutes just hearing from all of you. I've got something which I'd love to ask all of you. So all of you have been and are entrepreneurs, have been on this entrepreneurial journey, whichever way, shape and form that's taken. We have an audience listening in. And so my question to you is, you know, just a small example of what has been your single biggest challenge as an entrepreneur, and how have you overcome that? So a story, a short story or a snippet that actually someone listening in on the entrepreneurial journey can actually benefit from as a takeaway. Have a think about your biggest challenge that you've faced, or one of the most, you know, urgent challenges that you came across, and how did you overcome that? And let's start off with Sadaf, and then we'll go to Paul and Yahya, and then we'll ask Ricky, Ahmad, Fahad and Erkut. So I want to hear from all of you guys, just a very short example. You've got loads of time. So Sadaf, you're in the hot seat, actually. You're going to have to ask me first. So over to you for that.
Yeah, so everybody is going to, and it's going to be relative for everyone, but sometimes the issue is more intrinsic. The biggest challenge is more within yourself rather than what happens outside. Because it's a personal story, so my biggest challenge was my own fear. the voices inside your head. Everybody has them, entrepreneur or not. But those voices affect you more if you're an entrepreneur, or if you want to be an entrepreneur and you're just not that person. There are people who can report to people, they can work for other people, they're good employees. I'm a really bad employee. So a really bad employee can be a good entrepreneur. But that crossing that line between the two, the biggest challenge is, what is it that I think about myself? Am I willing to take that? It's a leap of faith. It's a risk. Are you a risk taker? What kind of a risk taker are you? There are three categories. Some people are risk averse, but sometimes if need be, out of necessity for survival, they'll take a risk. Then there are those who take calculated risks. I count myself as one. And then there are those real crazy disruptive entrepreneurs. Unfortunately, I'm not one of those, which is why I would like to work with startups, because they're like that. And the other challenge again was more to do with people outside the system, capital, all of that, they can be resolved. There's a solution, there's a strategy. This doesn't work, go around it, do something else. It is what you start allowing. If you start allowing the space within your thoughts and in your conversations and in your mind, what other people's perspective of what you can do, that kills it. That kills you as an entrepreneur. It's not you before you even start.
Thanks. Thanks, Sadaf. So just to recap, really interesting on fear and having courage to overcome your own fear that holds you back, and also perceptions and perspectives of others which can hold you back and actually really take away your energy and your drive and your zeal to go and believe in and deliver what you're thinking about doing. So that's interesting. And Paul, just very quickly over to yourself. What's your wisdom here?
Where do we start? So personally speaking, I mean, my biggest challenge when I first started, I kind of went on a mission to prove people wrong. What I mean by that is when a lot of us, if not all of us, start out in business, most family and friends will tell us it's the wrong decision. The economy's wrong, don't do it, you're silly, stick with your safety net, keep the job. And I think it's very easy to do that. When I launched my first business, I made huge mistakes. As I said, I got the office to start with, I got employees, and I had this pretty little business card that called me a managing director. And I thought I'd made it. 18 months later, as I said, I had to close that, made 3 people redundant, lost everything. The biggest challenge was then to admit that I got things wrong. I never thought to a point that those who told me not to do it were right. But I had to understand my mistakes. I had to learn from my mistakes. I had to do it again. Now, through that mindset shift that I learned to have the confidence to share my story, be proud of my mistakes, and think of ways of sharing that knowledge and information with others. Of someone who's dyslexic and never read a first book until I was 28, I was offered a publishing contract. I've now wrote 3 books or written 3 books, whatever the right word is, and become a #1 best-selling author with a book on sale in 27 different countries. Now, I'm not saying that as a self-plug or anything like that, but if I would have listened to my teachers and the naysayers, I wouldn't be in the position I'm in. So all I'm saying is believe in yourself, always go with your gut feeling, because I guarantee you're right. I absolutely guarantee you're right. So just have 100% belief in yourself, and just go on and do it. And understand that we live in this incredible digital world where you can share your knowledge so easily, but you can also get paid handsomely. And that's what I teach. You know, I've become an information publisher and helping people take the knowledge in here and turn it into information products that can change the world and have a huge impact. But that will only come by that mindset shift, by believing in your story and your message.
Really appreciate that, and thank you. Some really great takeaways there. Yahya?
So, first of all, thanks for asking me after Sadaf and Paul, because I can easily say I totally agree with them. Those are the two main challenges. But I think other than that, my main challenge has been over the last several years is this how to build your business model. It's not just about the business, but what path are you taking? So I mean, there are obstacles, there are opportunities everywhere. So the issue is, yeah, I mean, what is the purpose of your business? So do I go back to my finance book and say the purpose of a business is maximizing shareholders' value? Or I think the purpose of a business can be something very much bigger. It's providing some goods and services, which basically help people. Reaching out to people, you know, you want to help them, but at the same time, you want to make your living out of it. So what I have found over the last few years was that, you know, most of the experts, I would say all, most of the experts say, all right, so you want to do something for the masses? Okay, so it has to be a non-profit model. You cannot have a company doing it. So you have to have an NGO. And if you need money, sorry, no investor is going to give you the money. And actually, you cannot generate money. So all the routes, basically, they go to the donors. So you go to the USAID, you go to others, and you know, this is how it goes. And this is where the struggle had been in the last few years. Where you say, no, it doesn't make sense to me. I mean, first of all, why can't I build a business, you know, where I just want to stand on my own feet? And then the key in today's world lies in innovation. So I think that I can find solutions to so many things, and I can build a sustainable and a scalable business. Why is everyone telling me that doing good basically has to be done by a charity or has to be done by a non-profit? I mean, why can't you just combine these? And after a lot of soul searching, after a lot of research, after talking to people, I mean, this is where we found the solution, you know, in impact investment. And going forward, you know, with the broader framework of the Halal economy, you know, the Islam doesn't stop you from building a business. It doesn't stop you from making money, but it gives you a direction of how do you run a business. So I think, you know, so my biggest challenge had been this, and I think sitting now, I think we found a good direction. In terms of, you know, all these things can be combined. You can make a business, do good for the society. You know, I think this is all compatible very much with ethics, very much with Islam.
Great, thank you, Yahya. Really interesting. I'm conscious of the time, so actually, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to ask the same question, if I may, to Erkut, and then I know you've got lots of questions, Abir, so I'm going to jump over to you, and if you can ask the others some questions as well. It's just been fascinating. I'm really, really enjoying some of these answers. So perhaps I can just come over to Erkut. In terms of entrepreneurship, your journey, what have been some of the biggest challenges, and how have you overcome those?
I mean, my biggest challenge is like 12, 13 years back right now. I was living in Istanbul at that time. I just graduated from law school in Germany and was doing my master's. And at that time, I probably worked 4 or 5 years for a football agency in Germany as a part-time. So I was doing their work all the time. And my dream was, okay, I need to break through this industry. And I got my first offer to work for this agency in a full-time and become actually a partner of that agency for that and for them, and work in Turkey and represent this company in Turkey. And that was one of the most important times in my life, to take this decision. Do you want this? Do you want to be an employee of another company? Okay, he offers you kind of some shares in a company, but he said at the same time, you work just in Turkey, you are limited to this country. So you do whatever we want there. And I needed the money. I had so many university debts at that time. I just came out of university. I got funded by the German government because my parents, my mom is going cleaning twice a day. My father was working in a factory. They was looking after 3, 4 families in Turkey, in Anatolia. So money wasn't there. And that was a good offer. It was giving me comfort, right? And the first time, like a lifestyle where I earn some money every month, I can plan, right? And I never had that before. And I was sitting there in Istanbul, I'm thinking, is that what you want? And then I said, no, it's not what I want, but it would make you happy. Yeah, for a while maybe, but for my whole life, I don't want to be someone else's life's employee or worker and do what he wants. I want to do what I want. So I had to take the decision, and I said, okay. And it was because all my family members said, yeah, you have to go for it. Great, you become a partner, you got shares, you got a great salary, bonuses, go for it. And I said, no, that's not what I want. I need to work worldwide. I can't be set up in one country. I need to travel. I need to build it up myself. And I need to learn it. I need to make mistakes. I need to fail. And so I took the decision at that time, and it was like where like up and down started. I literally fall down so many times within 2 years. I mean, for surviving, I was giving English lessons to Turkish people in Istanbul. You have to imagine, I was like, fine, how can I get income? So, okay, but I'm not giving up my dream, my way. So I teach people, what can I do? I can teach. So I teach them. So I teach them English lessons. What can I teach? I can teach someone how to become a football agent. I'm an expert in it. So I was giving weekend seminars. So that was through my passion, actually, teaching and sharing. And following that, I came into the business where then big football players called me, the families, and says, hey, my son needs a contract. Can you help? You're a young lawyer, you're an educator. We like it that you teach. Can you come help? And that was the entry in the business. So I was thinking outside the box a little bit. I wasn't never like, it sounds comfort. And I think we need to leave that comfort zone, and we have to take risks in lives, because we all live once. And either we live the life of someone else's or we live our own life. And my thing was, I need to be living my own life with all the failures and all mistakes. And these 2 years of suffering, honestly, suffering, made me today who I am. If I would never have that, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't live in London today. I wouldn't have 7, 8 companies all over the world, and I wouldn't do that. So simple, I think it's very important. There's a time in life where it's difficult, and young people don't take risks. They like comfort. The mom and dad saying, okay, 3,000 a month, you have salary, perfect, take it, go for it. I think no, they can go always back to that. But when will they take again risks to achieve something what they really love and passionate about, which makes them really successful and give a big impact? I can help right now hundreds of people. At that time, I would just help me and my family maybe. But today, because of who I am, I can reach thousands of people. So I think that was the thing which was driving me, to help more people, to reach more people.
Wow. Well, you know what? I'm seeing how you guys have got this completely different thought process altogether, you know, a different style of thinking. And Feroz, you know, I'm seeing that businesses that are led by entrepreneurs are able to literally see opportunities to line their products and services and get the onset of this feeling of collaboration in a completely different way that traditional business does. And I know we've seen through our research and through our conversations how startups have grown exponentially over the past decade. In fact, I'd say they've blossomed across the world in recent years. And I know it's no coincidence. And I know there's been issues and challenges with what's happening across the world, from uncertainty in terms of job for life, as Erkut just mentioned, challenges with climate, food scarcity, the SDGs, the whole works. And I think people just generally are more mindful. So I'm going to rephrase that into a question that's just come to mind. And I think in keeping with all of those out of the box approaches that we're seeing people like you taking, and business leaders like Paul Pullman from Unilever, who are now turning towards setting up on their own. Just short comment answer it really, I guess. Why do you think people like that, like the Paul Pullmans, people like yourself, are setting up on their own, and what is it that traditional business isn't fulfilling? So I want to ask Fahad first, given that you represent a big global company, and then quickly to Paul, and then if we've got time, because I know for us you've got another 3 or 4 questions that you want to ask that relate to Gen Z. So what do you think that traditional business is not fulfilling, and what's the reason for then people setting up on their own? So Fahad, quickly to you first.
I believe it's the mindset that's primarily the hindrance between that's conventional businesses are facing. I believe it's major companies, startups. I think major companies have learned from startups as to how to think differently, how to think smartly, which perhaps conventional businesses are unable. You know, we say change is a constant, and that's how it needs to be. Learning on those new trends. It's also about trying to find out what suits your.
Fahad, just come a bit closer to the mic.
Can you hear me well now? Can you hear me well, Zubair?
Yeah, we can hear you now. Yeah, carry on.
Okay. Yeah. So that's one of the things that I think the approach that the conventional business aren't able to take. I think the ability to adapt and change is also one of the biggest hindrances. Major companies have to be very honest, even Coca-Cola, sometimes it takes more than a trend to bring about that change in your approach. I mean, we're far more open towards our challenges and issues now than we've ever been before. We are far more open towards admitting things that need to change within ourselves than we have been ever before. I think conventional businesses sometimes try to become more rigid, more strict around admitting their own I wouldn't say mistakes, but perhaps shortfalls or something similar like that. So I think it's about being more honest, transparent, more aggressive in admitting actually admitting what you can do, what can be undone, and what actually can change within yourself. I think that's how you set an example for others to follow as well. The change has to come from within. This is, I think, the difference between conventional business and the bigger one.
Okay, great. That's useful insight. Paul, just quickly, again, same question to you. Why do you think, or what's traditional business not fulfilling? You talked about helping people with lifestyles and stuff. Why shouldn't people, or why are people moving away from getting jobs and moving into setting up on their own?
They want freedom. There's your answer. Finished.
Wow. Awesome.
I'd say, look, prime example. The corporate world is so old-fashioned and so outdated. 3 big companies that spring to mind straight away for me: Facebook. Obviously, everyone knows Facebook. Mark Zuckerberg's philosophy within there is to give his employees freedom and flexibility to do what they want, even though they're employed. Social Chain, who is run by Steve Bartlett up in Manchester, another global social media agency, super young lad. He's created an environment in a workplace that gives his employees freedom of speech, freedom to do what they want when they want. VaynerMedia, Gary Vaynerchuk's company, again in America, huge organization, again gives his employees freedom. Now, that's only 3 companies in around the world that I can think of that allow that. The majority of companies nowadays, sadly, are very old-fashioned, very old school, very mindset, and very corporate. And employees are fed up with that. If companies allowed their employees to have more freedom, I guarantee that their employees would stay. But yet, a lot of employees not necessarily have the mindset to become an entrepreneur or a business owner, but they want freedom and flexibility. There's a reason why many years ago people started saying, well, you can work from coffee shops, you can become a rep. It's because people want freedom. And that's what becoming a solopreneur, a business owner, an entrepreneur brings. It gives you freedom. That doesn't mean it's easy. It's not easy. But in my opinion, people want that freedom to be able to do what they want when they want, rather than having to work 30, 40 years ago and feel that they have to clock in and clock out.
Great. Thanks, Paul. I think that's also, for our policymakers listening, that's the second key word, disruption being the first, and freedom and flexibility. Well, 3 words, I guess. Feroz, over to you.
Yes, thanks, Abir. And it's a really nice segue into my last question. Now, I'm really mindful of time, and thank you all for staying on this. I mean, we could talk all day, but it's my last question. I guarantee you it's the last question. We could carry on. But thanks, Paul. It really segues nicely into freedom. And my question, I suppose, relates to Gen Z, and for whom freedom is actually very, very important. They see themselves not being tied to the capitalist structures that be at the moment, and they really want to have the freedom to shape their own destiny. So my question, I suppose, is Gen Z going to reshape the entrepreneurial space? And with it, will that be shaping a new economy and, quote unquote, the new halal economy for the future? And perhaps if I can just kick that one off with Sadaf first, and then I want to bring Ricky into this, and then finally Fahad, if that's okay.
Yeah, so I would say, because I work with a lot of young people, I've worked with a lot of young people, this particular age group, in more than 30 cities across Pakistan also. There are a couple of words that describe them. They're disruptive. They're more aware of the issues around them because they're living those challenges. And I mean both urban centers and semi-urban and rural areas. These young people are more aware of the issues around them. They're living in an age, so we lived in a time when maybe the air was fresher and cleaner and there was lesser traffic and things were a little more environmentally friendly because life was simpler and we were still following the traditions of our grandmothers and grandfathers, which is why our life was simpler. But with the beautiful gifts that technology brings us, there's a lot more that happens with it. Secondly, I feel that this particular generation, especially the startups, the entrepreneurs of that particular age, they're more empathetic. They feel other people's pain. They want to find solutions because they are more aware. And when they want to find solutions, they also know that in this day and age, there's so many distractions and there's a particular cost of living. So they want to make money while doing that good. Hence, the term social enterprise emerges so strongly all of a sudden that not that it's unfortunately still a household name or it's mainstream, but more and more people, whether they realize this model is that of a social enterprise, even if they don't, the practice is that of a social enterprise. And that itself contributes to that change that we require or change that we foresee in the startup economy.
Thanks. Come over to Vicky.
Yes, so my experience with Gen Z is very much with the China, because related to the previous question about one of the biggest challenges, we took a very different tack to go out rather than launch in the UK, but take our products to Asia. From a startup exporting our British products to China was one of the big challenges, because we researched the market there. We saw that Gen Z was the up-and-coming growth sector in China, and we saw that as an opportunity to look at developing our business there. By firstly, we used a importer, which that's one of the biggest challenges we faced. We failed with that. I can put my hands up and say that was one of the biggest learning curves, but we had to go through it to experience the pain of exporting to China, to then founding our own office in Shanghai, where we employ the Gen Z generation, where they are more, we give them more empowerment. They want to have and bring in their own, especially in which is still a communist kind of structures there, but it gives them the opportunity to create their own business within our business by being account managers for different accounts that we have, like with Carrefour supermarkets. And I think having that in there, giving them the opportunity to do that, we can relate to them and they bring in ideas on how to promote our services and products. And that's given us an opportunity for them to actually come back to us and say, look, we understand, you know, you launch with your own set of brands, but let's help other British brands come into China. And that's given us a different value proposition by helping other British and European brands enter the very different market, and not using the B word at the moment, but actually we need to start looking more globally outside of our current UK and European partners, and actually thinking, actually there are markets out there that are more open to innovation, more inclusive, more looking to Western ideas as well. So that's been my personal experience with that kind of generation.
Thanks, Ricky. And finally, Zubair, if I may, I just want to finish off with getting Fahad's view on this, and then over to you.
Sure.
Yeah, so you see, we are a consumer product company that is targeting Gen Z. I think one of the things that we've learned is, you know, the opportunity for them to have a choice is extremely important. I think that's what we learned from them, and trying to cater ourselves as per their needs as well. there's a lot of challenge to that as well. You know, fashion changes very quickly, but sometimes opinions do as well. And I think it is remarkable that, you know, over the last 10, 15 years, this generation has, I mean, they can be influenced by anything, anytime, anywhere. And, you know, we struggle with the fact sometimes that, you know, they're not pure loyalists. Sometimes they are movers. So they can be into one thing one day and the other day. This teaches us a lot. You know, this is how the new world order is. This is how you have to adapt and change. I think this also tells you that, you know, companies, individuals, entrepreneurs have to be equally adaptable as well. They might be on top of the game one day, and, you know, a couple of few months down the line, that may not be the case. I think Gen Z is an absolute academy of for learning for all of us. You know, for major companies and smaller ones as well. The trends, their likes, their dislikes, their opinions, everything matters. And frankly, we have to adapt. Otherwise, we'll cut out.
Great, thanks. I think my question then requires a small one-word or two-word answer. I'm going to start off with Ahmad first, because I know you want to build on this last question. What do you think business will be like in 2030? We've seen business services and products are now very different to the last decade. That's in addition to the way we do business. We've seen a growth, of course, in ethical business and the halal space. And even traditional mainstream business are looking at things differently. So question is, what do you think business will be like in 2030? Ahmed, if we go with you first, just a very short answer, and then we can try and do a quick rapid fire with everyone before we just wrap up.
Yeah, I'll take the liberty to answer some of the earlier questions, because I was not given the chance to answer, to be brought into the earlier question. Firstly, I think I disagree with this notion that people seek freedom. That was said earlier by Paul. I think fulfillment, and freedom is part of that. And I think if you frame jobs, employment in terms of fulfillment, I think that will be something that can be packaged, and that's something what people seek. As a human beings, that's what we seek, rather than just to be free. If everyone is free, we don't have a society, we'll have something that we seek as a human beings. The other thing is we also have to be cautious of words like disruption. In fact, there's a lot of words being thrown around like disruption, which actually cause more alarm than actually do good. I think we need to make sure that things are explained in a simpler way, that what we are doing sometimes is something very basic, but kicking the ball down the field to better humanity, and not turning it upside down by use of complicated words. I think the main thing that I think the business that's going to be different is technology. I think human beings, the way we've existed, is not going to be the way we exist in 20 years from now. As we say, the fall of the Homo sapien and the rise of the human deus, the technology-man interaction, that's going to change fundamentally how you and I look, how you and I operate, what are our limitations, what are those things, bioengineering, biotechnology, technological implants. So number one, we have to see that. Number two, what we have to look at is the ethics of technology, and the ethics of how one of the things we are developing is on nurses training and nurses development. And how do you nudge nurses or people to get better trained so that they can get better jobs? Most of the apps that are out there are trying to tap into psychology that gets us addicted to doing the wrong things. I spend too much time on the screen and other things. Is because the ethics of ethics has divorced from technology. People are developing technology without realizing the public policy and ethics implications of that. And I think the businesses that merge technology, ethical technology, with humans to get humans to be the best they can be, to perform better than they can be, whilst not indulging in the worst aspect of what human psychology can offer. I think those are the business then that are going to do very well, and those are the business of 2030s and beyond.
Right, great. So a wholesome approach. Yahya, I want to ask you the same question, just a quick comment, and then we'll see how much time we've got.
I think in 2030, the business would be very different from today. I think in everywhere, the business would be more tech-oriented. At the same time, it would be more responsible. And I think it would be struggling to meet the challenges of new ways of ethical issues, cybercrime, so that would be the other side. On the positive side, technology and responsibility, and on the other side, the new challenges. So this is how I see things.
Okay, thanks. So, Sadaf, I'm keen to get your comments because you don't work in technology space. Ahmad and Yahya obviously are. And Erkut, just quickly, both of you, Sadaf first, Erkut followed, just quickly, where do you see business, or what do you think business will be like in 2030? What's going to be the core driver?
So while I don't work in technology, I work with people who work in technology. And I feel that the solutions are going to be much more fast-paced, technology or not. Entrepreneurs, so I'm going to just pick up one word from what Paul said, freedom. It is not freedom itself, it is the freedom of choices that we will be making. And that also, it made me realize that about maybe half a decade from now, people will be working this buzz term, location independent. Entrepreneurs are more willing to explore other places. So location independence actually gives them that bandwidth to go explore other places where they can apply the solutions that they have found through their enterprises or create replicable models, which is something that I'm also doing.
Thank you, Sadaf. Erkut, just quickly.
Yes, I would say a very digital world. That's like where I see us in a digital environment, and I think the high streets will be online in future. So from shopping to everything. But I think what Paul mentioned earlier, like for myself personally, I'm working on how to put this into a digital world and bring it to the world. So I teach a lot. I do a lot of things like that. I go all over the world, and I think how can you put your knowledge in the best way in a digital world and to reach millions of people? I mean, it's unbelievable what we have today. We can reach billions with one click. I mean, it's unbelievable. You can spread your knowledge, your business, everything you have so quick and so fast if you know how to do it. And I think that's the biggest question. Whoever knows the best way to bring it into the digital world will win the race.
Great. All right. Thanks, Erkut. I know, Paul, I know you're keen to talk about relationships. So go on. Last word to you. Yeah. Unclick.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, in regards to relationships, my best advice for any business owner is just to go out and network and build relationships as quickly as you can. Go out at least twice a week, face-to-face networking, attend one free networking event and one paid networking event, become an authority in your local area, and understand that 80% of your network and following will be those who bring more customers into you. If you're not building relationships, you're doing so much wrong. I'm very fortunate. I've built a global business. I don't employ anybody. I don't want to employ anybody. I couldn't think of anything worse. But I have partnerships. I've built great partnerships. And for me, that's what's important. One of the biggest things that I learned when I launched this now business 10, 11 years ago, I launched it by doing a joint venture. I had an idea. I created a digital product, but I didn't have any customers. So I worked with somebody who had the customers, and I knew that what I offered solved the problem of his customers. And I was prepared to give 50% of the profits to that person. And that's how I built my business. I've built it on working smarter rather than harder. I'm prepared to give part of my business away to reward others for helping me rather than employing people. If I start employing people, and I'm not saying that's for everybody, but if I start employing people, then I've created a job for myself rather than a business. And that's not what I wanted. So relationships are key, but the right relationships, and do it for the right reasons.
So I see business in 2030 focused around tech and inclusivity, obviously diversity, as you've mentioned, independence in terms of flexibility, freedom, if you want to call it that, fulfillment, and obviously key to all of those are relationship building as well. Firoz, I'm just conscious that we've actually gone way over our time, and I mean, I could talk to these guys for hours.
Oh
So yeah,
dear.
that's all we have time for.
Oh dear. Oh dear. Well, listen, it's been an absolute fabulous webinar. I'm sure you'd agree today, and we could carry on talking for another hour very easily. But let me just say thank you to all of our panelists today and to everyone that tuned in on the live webinar. We've got our next one in 2 weeks' time. This webinar has been recorded, so you can listen again or forward on. And we ask you please to include the hashtag Halal Expo London.
Yeah, so some really valuable insights from our entrepreneurs today. And again, we've brought people closer together on the journey. And that's exactly what this series is designed to do. And it's become a strong community and a platform of global and socially conscious entrepreneurs from across different sectors, with focus on impact and various other aspects of life and the challenges that 2030 may bring. Our next webinar, Xiphios, you mentioned, is on what's shaping the fashion, cosmetics and retail industry over the next decade. And we have a new co-host who's stepping into your shoes, which is Hadra Khan. So that's in 2 weeks' time.
Fantastic. So listen, we look forward to seeing you all and welcoming you back. If you're an investor, startup founder, CEO with something to share, or policymaker that wants to get a better understanding of this space, then get in touch with us through LinkedIn and let's get you in the conversation with.
Great. See everyone in 2 weeks' time.
Take care. Bye, everyone.
Take care. God bless.